Gas fitter exam cram session, video 12. Okay, yeah. You open up your flange joint. It's in a tight spot. You look at it. The gasket's still in good shape. It's still there. It's in one piece. You got to change it. I know it's a pain in the ass. You know, you got to get your tools in there and scrape. And you know, top's easy, but now the bottom is like, the bottom's always the hard part. Anybody can get the top. The bottom's the hard part, stuff, and it's like, yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but the code says, you open it, new gasket. No ifs, ands, or buts. Very clear on that. Okay, so the answer is, look what you do in your, you know, in your, when it's not a test, and you know, if nothing's leaking and everything's good and you're willing to walk away from it is another story. But on the test, yes, you will replace that gasket. 50. Gas vent terminals shall be at least, covered this from the very beginning, 18 inches above grade. And we said what? 18 is a good number. It shows up all the time. Not just for gas, it shows up in other places in the code where all of a sudden we made it to the outside of the building, we're at the sidewalk, above grade, stuff that people walk by don't even notice, but they're there, you know. 18 is always a good answer, okay? You know, and I'm not being fair. I mean, I shouldn't say not everyone notices. I mean, like for instance, the standpipes, you know, the green or the red or yellow or silver things with the caps. People notice those. I mean, you walk in the hood, it's like the drug dealers notice those because that's where they unscrew it, put the drugs in, screw it in there. So, you know, it's like it's not on them, good to go, blah, blah, blah. But that's not on the exam. Maybe on the police exam or the lieutenant's exam, but not this exam. Aren't you glad you tuned into this video today, right? Okay, so let's go to page 12. All right, page 12. If you haven't already noticed, is the answer key. It's a facsimile of the answer sheet. Let's see. For here, you're going to notice that each test, the answer key comes right after the exam. So don't, I tried to make it as clear as possible because sometimes guys will say like, you know, your answer key for this one is like, this isn't right, that isn't right, or whatever. And then I notice like sometimes it isn't. Okay, mistakes happen, but in some situations I notice like, oh, we just finished test 1, but you're checking your answers with the answer key to test 2, you know. So to avoid that, I've tried to make it way more obvious what answer key you're on to avoid that frustration, to waste your time, you know. It's like, now you know, okay, I finished test 1, answer key for test 1. You see here, this, you're using a computer on test day, and it's one question on the screen and then hit to the next question, so your answer key doesn't look anything like this. And you know, for those of you who are old enough or who have used, you know, the old fill in the bubble thing, one of the nice things about the computer exam is, you know, you don't have to worry about filling in the bubble good enough. Also, you don't have to worry about filling in the wrong bubble. Let's say you started off and you filled 1 through 5 good, okay? The answer you wanted for 3 is where it should be, on 3. But then you know, somewhere along the line you missed 1. You didn't fill 6 and 6, you filled it in 7. And then of course, what are you doing? Well, your next answer, well, 7 is filled, so you go to 8. You don't realize you're 1 off. And if you don't check for that, guess what? You just handed in a really fucked up answer sheet. And 2, if you do check for that, guess what? You got a lot of erasing to do. Okay, all unnecessary in a test, you know, but you got, you know, you don't want that in a test, but you got to be vigilant to avoid it, or vigilant to catch it and fix it, or take the test on the computer where the computer makes sure that doesn't happen to you. And let's say, for the sake of argument, you hit a hard question and you don't want to answer. You don't put an answer in there. Okay? General test taking strategy is, if you come across, because there's no penalty for a wrong answer, all right? And if you put an answer, whatever answer, you just pick something to put it in there, there's always a chance. There's a 25% chance it may be right. So even if you walk away from the test at that point, there's still a chance you might have gotten it right, okay? There's also a chance, too, that you filled it in, and this, you said you were going to come back to it, but somehow, some way, you forgot to go back to it. So the answer stays, and there's also 75% chance that that's not the right answer. With the computer, once you're done, once you feel you're done answering all the questions, and you feel you went back to the ones that you weren't sure about, you can hit review. And review lets you go through all of it. And review will show you all 50 and show you the ones you have put an answer to, the ones you have not put an answer to. And this doesn't occur in the DCAS computer, but it does occur in the in these test centers. When you're at a question that you're not sure of, and you could leave it blank, but let's say you put in any old question and you want to get back to it. For the DCAS test, I always, on my scrap paper, just write down the number of the question. So I know. It's like, go back, look at question 25. For the computer, you don't even have to do that. There's actually another little option in the menu bar. You can flag it. You just hit flag. That will automatically put a mark next to that question. When you're doing your review, not only will it show you the questions you gave an answer to and questions you didn't give an answer to, but also questions that you flagged that's the one you want to go back to work on now. Very handy, very nice. A lot of the pitfalls that came with the old, Scantron sheets and pencils, it's got to be a number 2 pencil. Oh, you didn't fill it in enough. Oh, you filled it in too much. Oh, you filled the wrong line here. Or, oh, I need another eraser because I pretty much have to erase my entire sheet and start over, and I got only 5 minutes left on the exam. All that, gone. So that's one of the nice things. Here you'll see, I put this line in the middle. So you have 1 through 25, and then you have 26 through 50. I did that on purpose, okay? Because the first time you take this test, if you're not a seasoned or avid test taker, you haven't done this for a long time, stamina is going to be an issue, okay? You're going to start petering out. You're going to, by 25, you're going to start saying, maybe even before or maybe not. But around the middle of the test, it's good to see just how you feel, okay? This is test 1. If somehow you feel like a total idiot because it's like, look, I'm a plumber, I've been doing this all my life. I thought I knew how to do gas. It's like, you do know how to do gas. That's not what this test is about, okay? So, any feelings of fucking, inadequacy are completely normal. This just means you got some practice to do, okay? It's like, I'm sure you can run once around the track. That doesn't mean you can run once around the track like you did when you were a teenager. And it doesn't mean when you're done, you don't feel like maybe, asking me to call an ambulance for you. It just means you need to do some more work, okay? So here, at the midpoint, it helps, it lets you know, all right, I'm halfway through the test. Okay, whatever I did up to this point, I just got to do it again, or I'm halfway through the test and I'm winded. It's like, wow, I really got to work on my stamina, etc., etc. But I always give you something at the halfway to let you know when you're halfway there. It helps you gauge yourself and see how you're doing and how you will do, I give it to you in groups of 5s, because, you can look at everything, and you can look at some small jobs, some big jobs, some monumental tasks. And one of the first things that happens is you look at it and you walk away because it's like, that's too big. That's too much, where would I even start? I don't even know where to start. It's like, exactly. You don't even know where to start, okay? It's too big. It's so much to do. And it's like, that's exactly what causes you to walk away from the task or to view the task as insurmountable. The trick to that is, there's a trick to everything. I'll go into boxing, okay? Let's say we have 12 rounds, 12 2-minute rounds. 2 minutes doesn't sound like a lot unless you're getting your head beat the fuck in, you know? And you're trying to, you know, defend yourself and trying to, you know, put the beating down on someone. Well, you know, they're not pairing you up with a little girl. It's like this is a full-flown, you know, full-fledged fucking grown individual who also wants to put the beat down on you. You know, it's like not an easy task. It might hurt a lot. So 2 minutes starts feeling like a lot in that situation. And then you got to do it 11 more times. It's like you finished the first round 11 more times. This could sound like a lot. So, what's your corner going to tell you? What's your coach going to tell you? You know, they're going to tell you, don't look at 12 rounds. You know, don't look at 2 minutes. You know, it's like, look at this whole fight as one punch at a time, one step at a time. Okay? One step at a time, one punch at a time, one round at a time. Okay? And you're never as far behind as you think you are, okay? Let's say it does go to the judges and you think you're losing on points, you know? You're never as far behind as you think you are, you know? You're still there, you're still breathing, you're still moving, you know? One step at a time, one punch at a time, one round at a time, okay? And, you know, just another example of, like, you know, how difficult, you know, this is not easy, you know, saying it is easy, and it's like, oh, you know, Victor, you can talk or whatever. And it's like, I can talk, but I can also show you that it's not just talk. Let's go to drowning. You know, what's worse than drowning? I would imagine that's a horrible way to die. That doesn't feel good when you lose your breath, you know? You can imagine, I know, if you're individuals who have, like, let's say, just even losing your breath from asthma. That's not fun. That doesn't feel good. You know, if you are a person or know a person or see a person, like, you know, they're having an asthma attack and the inhaler's not nearby, it's like, that can be a terrifying experience, you know? It's like air. I'm sorry, but we're all fucking addicts to that. I mean, you know, we don't have air for a long enough time. It's like, you know, it feels like you're going to die. And it's like, well, yeah, you are going to die because you have to keep breathing. So it doesn't feel good. Panic sets in. You're not thinking about anything except, like, I'm terrified to death that I'm going to die. And rightly so. So drowning victim. It's hard to imagine, but the two keys to survive drowning, if you happen to be drowning, are: one, calm the fuck down. Okay? The more you panic, the more you're guaranteed to die. Absolutely. Your degree of panic is your degree of imminent death. You're guaranteed to die if you allow panic to control everything. Are you not going to panic? No, you should panic. This is a bad situation. You need to resolve this, okay? And I would say, you know, it's like, it's nice to know, you know, it's nice to have friends. It's nice to count on your fellow man. But we got to assume that sometimes you can only count on yourself. So calm down the best you can. Get your orientations to find out which is up. Go up. The air is up. Go up. If you feel that's up, go up. Okay? It's better than staying where you are, or worse, sinking further. Sinking farther. Both. You can use both. This is both a physical and a metaphysical condition. Okay. 2. No matter how little air you think you have, no matter how much time you think you don't have, you always have, and this is scientifically proven, you always have, and you have to take faith in this. And I recommend you take faith in this well because you're drowning in near death. I mean, you really don't have much else anyway. I mean, what do you got to lose? You're pretty much certain you're going to die. It sure feels like you're going to die. You really have nothing to lose. So take faith in that there is a little more air in your lungs than you think you have. Okay? There is a little more fight in you than you think you have. You have a few more seconds of a legitimate chance at life than you think you have. So maybe you're not completely objective in this situation. So try and disassociate yourself and take faith that, you're horrible panic. You're desperate, desperate pleas for life. You're all of a sudden, renewed or newfound, faith in a higher being has suddenly, taken you. Take faith in yourself that you may not be objective and that there is also hope that the situation is still salvageable. Okay? Either that or you are going to die and drown, because that does happen and there's no guarantees in life. So, with that, so on page 12, underneath the answer key, and if, let's say, for example, the answers I have given you during the course of this session don't line up with the keys in the answer key, that can happen. Change it. Just change it to what I explained. And if you're not sure, that's why the code is given to you. I gave you the chapter in the code, so you look and double check. And if you want, it's always welcome. It's how we keep improving the book. We keep fixing little things here and there and make it look like, we actually paid somebody to make the book. We actually paid a publisher on Fifth Avenue to make this book, List it in the comments section. It's not a competitive exam, so you don't even have to worry that you're giving away an edge, because it doesn't matter, And at the bottom, I always say, you know what? I give this information because, well, everyone's curious. It gives you a better idea of what you're up against or whatever. But I always say, you know what? You should go in expecting to get 100, okay? That's what you're working for. I know it sounds a lot, but let's say we're aiming at a target. Firearm, bow and arrow, whatever. You're aiming at it, right? We're not even going to count wind. We're not going to allow for it. There's no wind that day. 0 wind. So we don't have to worry about that. What we do have to worry about is, let's say the target is 50 meters away. With our arrow, our firearm, at 50 meters away, we are not going to aim directly at the bullseye to get a bullseye. Come on. We live on the planet Earth. We deal with gravity, okay? We know that once we, get a sight of the bullseye, we're going to aim just a little up, just a little above it, because we know once we release, it flies. Gravity is going to slowly bring it back home, back home, back home. And by the time gravity and the target have met and put forth their, postulated their arguments, the arrow is going to be in the bullseye. Okay? The arrow did not hit where you aimed. It hit lower because gravity said you ain't getting that. But the target and gravity both say you got the bullseye, and that's kind of what we wanted, right? So if you aim for 100 and, oh no, you only got an 84, it's like, oh, poor you. You only need a 70 to pass. You did exactly what you wanted to do. You're going to get exactly what you want, and all the work you did was worth it. You did a good job. That's it. That was the whole point. You had to pass that test. Boom. Now, if you get 100 and you're an overachiever, you're someone like me who, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right and I'm going to be the best at it. Maybe that's not always going to be the case, but that's what I'm going for. Well, let's say you do get 100. That's a trophy. Frame that, because that is one hell of an accomplishment. I will shake your hand and say, wow. I have great respect for you, because that is a very admirable and respectable thing to do, and that's a trophy. And for some people, They like their trophies. I love my trophies. Doesn't mean anything. I pass just like the next guy. That's it. By how much? Doesn't matter. Has no bearing on it. But to me, I like a trophy. Some people, they just like to get this thing done. Both carry equal weight in this particular contest. So, just to establish, like I said in the very beginning, you have to get 35 questions right. So in your overview, and you're worried, and you're going over and say, God, I don't know, I was worried about a lot of them. But if you can, ascertain without a doubt that 35 of those questions are absolutely correct without a doubt, you passed. Now, that might mean that, yes, that's all based on your expertise, so maybe you might want to make sure that 40 of those questions are absolutely correct without a doubt, to give you that leeway just in case you were wrong on something. But you want 35 correct answers. Anything less than that is a fail. So that means, maybe it's easier to remember, well, how many can I get wrong and still feel safe? You can get 15 wrong, and you will pass. But once again, on a test, it's like, oh, I'm worried or whatever. 15 wrong. It's like, well, I'm sure these 15, I'm almost certain they're wrong, but that's it. And it's like, good. Maybe you should make sure that maybe at most only 10 are wrong. Give you that 5 extra just in case you're wrong. You're the only expert you can count on in that room. You can't ask anyone to check or give you advice. It's like, you are your own expert. You're the only person you can bring in that room with you. You're the only one who's going to be able to judge whether or not you should, keep working, or whether or not you can just finish and walk away. I would say make sure, 10 of them are the ones you think you got wrong. That 5 extra will give you a buffer, and boom, you passed the exam. You'll know you passed or failed the exam almost immediately. You'll leave the room, they'll palm print you again, I'm not exactly sure why they'll palm print you again, but I guess it's, better safe than sorry. I don't know, who the hell knows? Maybe you figured out how to fucking, bend the laws of time and space and just bring someone else into the room. But, for some reason you can't switch again, so that person walks out to make sure that you did not know how to, materialize another individual, another palm print. And then you go back to the front and they'll print out for you your result sheet that I showed you. The one that's an official document that's going to be transmitted to the Department of Buildings, got your photo, exactly how well you did in all those sections, blah, blah, blah. And even how, if you want, just like a college transcript or whatever, if for some reason you present this to an employer or to any body, whatever, and they doubt the veracity of the piece of paper you're showing them, you can also go online to their website and have it digitally embossed, which means they can go to the website and see for themselves, just like, if you've been going through the process or went through the process yourself of, higher ed with your transcripts or whatever, no one's going to ask you to send your transcript to them. They're going to ask you to go to the institution, and the institution will send the transcript directly to them to make sure you don't get your hands on that and somehow manipulate it. That's what the digitally embossing does. But that's at least 2 months away. Right now, we are concerned about the actual questions and material and getting everything right on the exam. So, test 1 is done. Test 2, page 13. Question 1. Conduit protecting gas piping installed underneath a building shall extend not less than 2 inches beyond the point where the pipe emerges from the floor. Let's see. The word inches I see is not here, but it should be there. That's how it's worded in the code. So if you want to write in 2 inches, or feel that it's understood that it's 2 inches, it's inches. Conduit protecting gas piping installed underneath the building shall extend not less than. So if beyond the point where the pipe emerges from the floor, and this is from the floor, we're also going to have situations where it emerges from the wall, from the side. So that's a different story. This is the floor. So first off, there's a blanket statement in the fuel gas code that says you are not running gas piping under a building, period. But there's always exceptions. But we got to run gas piping under a building, or even just under a floor. Can you do it? Yes, but you're going to have to give it its own little chase, its own little channel, its own little tunnel, its own little conduit, piping, whatever you want. It's gotta be inside its own little special sleeve or chase or tunnel or whatever to protect it. And there's going, obviously, yes, we're going to have several stipulations for that, but let's concentrate on this one first. Let's say we use a conduit, a pipe, right? That, we can run the pipe, but the pipe will have to not just run along and up, but through the floor. And, well, how much of it is going to stick out? We want at least 2 inches to stick out above the floor. And, of course, the pipe itself can come up through that, okay? So, 2 inches. Remember 2 inches. This number is going to be very popular in other versions of this question or questions that refer to underground piping, sleeving, all of that. 2 inches. They like that number. In fact, if you remember that number, it's going to be a lot easier, even if the question you're not sure of, or it's a lot of words or whatever. It's like, if it's in that general area we're talking about coming up out of the floor, or out of this or out of that, 2 inches. A basic, let's see, we don't have to do the floor. We can just do they don't like gas piping under a building, but Benihana, the hibachi tables, that's gas. The guy comes, with the cart, and he, before the cart, the waitress or comes and preheats, starts getting that thing hot. Well, she turns it on, clicks it on. It's like there's a gas burner under there. But where's the gas line? Well, the gas line is in the ceiling, coming down, dropping down. The gas. She didn't bring a propane tank, and there's no propane tank in there. She didn't bring one. There's no hoses there. It's a gas line. It's a rigid connection. That connection is going through the floor, underneath the floor, to wherever else in the building that it's getting the gas from. So you can imagine if you were to open up the access panel to the hibachi table, you would see the gas line coming up through the floor, like I said, and it's got to be coming up through a sleeve. That sleeve should be at least 2 inches higher than the floor, and then the piping up through it. Okay. Question 2. Galvanizing shall be considered adequate protection for exposed exterior piping. What are we talking about? Meter piping. Okay. Galvanizing is just a coating of tin on steel, as protection from corrosion. There was a time before NoHub, before NoHub made things a lot easier, that you would run galvanized piping for the vent piping. You'd run cast iron, hub and spigot, cast iron, up to the waist, and then from the waist, you start your vent, you'd run your vent in galvanized. It's steel piping with a coating of tin on it. We still use galvanized piping. Where would we use it? On the meter piping outside. Let's say you have a house, and instead of the service going into the basement or cellar, it's coming up in a little corner of the house, a little side of the front of the house, or whatever. And, it's going into the little meter bars, and then it goes back inside to go feed, the appliances. That piping, since it's outside and exposed, you can see it, they'll allow you galvanized piping because it'll lengthen the life of the piping, as opposed to just putting